We all know, essentially, at least we all think we know what happened last Thursday in the House of Representatives. But let's, man, there's a blue million questions here. Let's try to walk through all this. Sitting with me next to me in the newsmaker chair here, 3rd District Congressman Marlin Stutzman. Marlin, welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, Pat. It's great to be with you.
So, okay, can I lay out what I've got? I've got 9 articles here.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I lay out what it is I know happened from articles, and then you start painting around what I know and what I don't know? Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. For a bill to come to the floor, regardless of what it is, there has to be a rule that accompanies the bill, because that lays the groundwork. As we're discussing Bill ABC, these are the rules by which we discuss it.
Right.
And it sets up, the rules set up how the votes are going to happen, how debates will happen, what committees get involved.
I've described it this simple. It's basically going out to go for a pickup game of basketball, and you stand around in a circle and say, are we going to play ones and twos?
Shirts and skins, or what?
Twos and threes. Okay, that's the rule.
Okay, so this 3-page thing that I found here that I've got printed off, this House Resolution 776, this is the rule that goes with the bill that ultimately was voted on Thursday.
That is the rule that we had to vote on to allow for other options to come to the floor. Okay, got it. Okay. Now, you were, up until a point in time, one of the no votes on the rule. Right.
Because this rule I'm trying to be real careful with my words here. This rule could lead to the vote on the Cromnibus, which is a bill you did not want.
Right. The Cromnibus was the $1.1 trillion spending bill, and I did not support it, and I did not want it. Me and a bunch of other conservatives were trying to negotiate a deal to get to a CR, a short-term. Okay, yeah.
Listen. My email box has exploded since Thursday, as I'm sure yours has.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to fill every crack here. Okay, a CR is a continuing resolution.
Right.
That is, okay, we don't have a full-fledged spending bill, so we're going to do a CR whereby we're continuing everything for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days or whatever the CR says.
That's right.
Okay.
And that our strategy was, let's do a CR because we just had the election in November. And the American people spoke very loudly. They changed the leadership in the Senate from Democrat to Republicans. Now it's 54 Republicans rather than, I believe it's 54 Democrats right now. And I mean, it's a huge switch. And then they added seats in the House. And so we're saying, let's just do a budget extension, a CR into January or February, and until the new folks come in. And that's what the American people expect. That's who they expect to govern right now, not a lame duck Congress. Because
you have people screaming right after an election like that, and I get it all the time, we just voted these guys in, why are they doing, and then put in whatever it is, this, and this. And I always had to keep explaining to people, the Congress that you voted for on November is not seated yet. They're coming in January 6th or something like that. Okay, so, because some people in their minds, and other countries do this, maybe we should think it through, but other countries, when the election happens, boom, everything becomes right then. If you're a prime minister of England and if you lose the vote, you're out of Downing the next day. You're out. So, which makes sense to me.
It does. And in fact, I've proposed to other folks to say, look, if the election changes the leadership or the majority in either the House or the Senate, and instead of having just a lame duck Democrats or Republicans, that we should just automatically go to a CR, and that we don't even have Congress come back and start passing more bills, because these people are not accountable to the voters that they've just faced.
Okay, let me do a real fast ABCD here, and then we'll go back and hang meat on it to see if it makes sense.
Yeah.
At the start of the day on Thursday, you're a no vote on the rule, and you're a no vote if that bill ultimately comes to the floor. That's where you're at. The CR makes sense to you. Let's get this thing past January the 6th. Let's seat the Congress that everybody voted for. Then let's deal with the nuts and bolts, and let's do this the right way. Mm-hmm. That's basically where you were.
Right.
We won't say the what yet, but something happens midday, noonish, somewhere around there, and you and another change your vote on the rule to vote yes on the rule, which ultimately opens up the ability for the bill, the Cromnibus, to come to the floor.
Mm-hmm.
But at the moment that you are changing your vote, and let's still don't get into the who yet, the reason you're doing it is because, well, I've got it right here. Because when I look at the rule, Section 4 of the rule, and I'm going to read it. This is very gobbledygook, but the requirement of Clause 6A of Rule 13 for a two-thirds vote to consider a report from the Committee on Rules on the same day it is presented to the House is waived with respect to any resolution reported through the legislative day of December the 12th, 2014. As you're on the floor. Now, look, and I can watch the floor. Mm-hmm. Okay, I can get to C-SPAN. I can watch it.
Mm-hmm.
For all practical appearances, it looked like those that wanted Cromnibus didn't have the votes. Wasn't going to happen.
Right.
Am I reading that right?
That's right. That's right.
So the reason why, I mean, okay, now I'm going to get into a little bit of the who, okay? Because I've watched some stuff, and I've gone back and watched a little bit of footage from the floor, and I'm just going to tell you, without you looking at me and telling me, okay, I think I know the who, okay? But that's for me to know and for it to be fleshed out later. But somebody comes to you on the floor, and they say, we need you to vote for the rule because, according to the thing I just read, if the rule dies, not only does Cromnibus die, but we can't do a CR. There will be a government shutdown.
Right.
And every time there's a government shutdown, part of the problem you're going to have there is just like when we had the sequester, and if the White House starts deciding what shuts down and what doesn't, they're going to use it to rip Republicans apart again. I mean, that's the whole bottom line. Somebody or somebodies, if I'm wrong, just tell me, but somebody or somebodies comes to you in the back of the floor, the back of the well, and basically says to you, we need you to change your vote so that this can go forward, so the rule can go forward. They don't have the votes for Cromnibus, so we're not going to bring Cromnibus to the floor.
Mm-hmm.
We want this cleared so we can bring the CR to the floor. I'm not sure the exact language. I wasn't standing there, but is that basically what happened?
They knew I was a no vote.
Okay.
The leadership in our conference knew that I was a no vote on the Cromnibus, and we had been saying we will vote for a CR, a short-term spending bill, a short-term extension through February, and that's why we went onto the floor, and I think there were 17 of us that voted no, and you know the rules don't hardly ever go down. They don't, because you're establishing what rules you're going to debate by, things like that. But in this rule, it allowed for the Cromnibus, but it also allowed for a same day. So that way we didn't go to a shutdown. We could turn right around and bring a budget extension, a CR, to the floor and pass it with 2/3 majority. That's what was in the language.
Now, don't let me keep putting words in your mouth, but I don't know if you can tell if I'm frustrated or not.
Yeah.
Okay,
No,
I am beyond frustrated.
I'm frustrated.
Let me put this forward from what I've seen, then you tell me if I'm right or wrong and tell me where I'm wrong, okay? Another thing that tells me, I mean, because you're going to get people denying stuff all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this. There are an awful lot of articles from people that don't have a dog in the fight that say there's an awful lot of plausibility to the Marlin Stutzman side of this story.
Yeah.
Okay, the people who know people, and I've got all kinds of stories here where they're talking about high-ranking aides to House leadership and that whole bit. You know, we can't name them, but they're saying what Marlin says seems to be making some sense here. It makes sense to me. I don't know why they did it, but it makes sense to me. House leadership wanted the rule to pass because they left the voting for the rule open longer. The voting was done, but they left it open because they knew that they had their somebodies out there hammering around saying, guys, you've got to get this flipped. We need the rule to pass so we can do a CR.
Yeah.
I mean, they left the voting open, right?
Well, and they all came to the floor. I mean, Boehner was on the floor, McCarthy was on the floor, Scalise is on the floor, Kathy McMorris Rodgers is on the floor. I mean, the entire leadership team is on the floor.
Yeah, because when you say leadership, some people go, "Oh, so it was Boehner." There's like 7 or 8 people in leadership, right? Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, so when they come to the floor and say, "Look, we need a vote on the rule because of the same day provision in there that allows us to do the CR." And so I'm asking the question, are we getting a CR? Because that's what I wanted. And I'm told the Democrats aren't voting for this, and there's not enough Republicans to vote for this. And so that means,
as you watch footage of that day, Steny Hoyer was running around like a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. You could tell he was in a panic because he didn't think that he had what he needed.
No, and Steny Hoyer eventually voted for it as well. But there were a good number of Democrats that voted against the Cromnibus for different reasons. And Republicans voted against it because we missed an opportunity to have the fight with the president over his executive order on immigration.
Right.
I mean, that is what we were trying to stop. Congress is weaker today than it's been in a long time, and the president just continues to do what he wants. I mean, you mentioned in your opening about relationships with Cuba. I mean, this is another one. And so the president is just continuing to go around Congress, and we finally said, enough is enough. I mean, we had it. And there's the 17 of us conservatives were like, this is it. And I've only voted against a rule one other time, and that was the time against the farm bill.
Right.
And that cost me my seat on the whip team. And I did it because I felt that it was in a bad
leadership beat you up for doing that.
Well, it was a bad bill, and that's exactly why I did it on this one. It was a bad bill, and we're trying to tell them, look, there is a better way to do this, and let's do it when we have Republicans in the Senate controlling the Senate. We have more Republicans in the House, and we can actually not only budget better, but we can also stop the president from doing his executive order on immigration. That's why I voted against the rule, but then was told something different, that there was going to be a CR, and that's when I said, okay.
Okay. All right. I got to take a quick break. One quick answer, okay? Because in checking all this stuff here, one other thing I've come to realize, everybody's beating you up, okay? But as I'm looking, every other Republican from Indiana voted for the rule, and you're the only Republican that didn't vote for the bill. Every other Republican representative also voted for Cromnibus.
They voted for the rule and for the bill.
Okay, but you're getting beat up.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Welcoming back to the Newsmaker chair, 3rd District Congressman Marlin Stutzman. Again, Marlin, thank you for coming in.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
In one of the articles I'm reading, it says a GOP leadership aide. So that's this again is one of those unnamed sources. Said Stutzman's account was incorrect, and that Speaker John Boehner never spoke to him about the bill. I don't remember you telling anybody that it was, in fact, Speaker Boehner. In fact, there are several members, as we've said earlier, there are several people in leadership.
Right.
Somebody in leadership.
Right.
Now, so you've never made the claim, and
no,
the claim may be coming later, but I mean, you've never made the claim that John Boehner came to you.
No, I mean, that's why if you go back to my statement that night, I said earlier today I supported the rule because I was informed by leadership that the Cromnibus was dead and a short-term CR, budget extension, would take its place. I was very surprised and even more disappointed to see the Cromnibus back on the floor.
Now, in National Review, which a lot of conservatives go to National Review, Joel Gerke, who's usually very effective as a journalist, he said just before 3 o'clock, so this is after you've had the rules vote.
About 2 hours after the rules vote.
He said, right after the House recessed for several hours, Boehner, Scalise, and McCarthy worked GOP members to get the votes necessary to pass the Cromnibus bill. So here's the thing. There's no question that for whatever reason, House leadership was ready to work with the White House to pass the whole bill. The only question is, somebody in leadership came to you and to a couple of others, about changing your vote on the rule. Because if you don't pass the rule, they can't do the bill, but you also can't do the CR. You've been led to believe somewhere around noon, let's get the rule passed so we have the stage on which we can then do the CR. Mm-hmm. Nobody said anything to you. The House leadership was ready to dance with the White House and pass the Cromnibus.
No. I mean, as far the information I was given was that Democrats weren't voting for the Cromnibus. There weren't enough Republicans voting for the Cromnibus. The rule allows for a same-day CR to be brought to the floor, so that way we didn't go into a shutdown. And that all made sense to me. And that's why I switched my vote, because if I'm getting what I wanted, and that was a CR, that's what conservatives wanted. That was the deal we were trying to negotiate. And that's what I was told was going to happen. I even went back up and talked to other members on the floor and said, this is what's going to happen. And so we passed the rule.
Forgive me, but I also happen to know that there's at least one other conservative member of the House. Okay, you may not know that I know this. I happen to know that there's one other conservative member of the House who voted no on the rule, but once he found out later that you switched your vote and why you did it, basically congratulated you for doing what you did, because he basically thought you'd save the day.
Well, I mean, there were other, as we're walking out from the floor, off the floor, back to our offices, I'm walking with a bunch of, other conservative friends, and they're like, who voted for the rule, they had voted for the rule.
In the first place. Right.
And they said, you know what, that might have been, that was the play. We should have all done that and got what we wanted. But Marlin, you were doing it. You did it. And so, thank you. And so
basically, in their view, you saved the day.
Yes, because we got the deal we wanted. We got the CR, which puts it into January until we get the new Congress. And then we can negotiate between House and Senate much better with McConnell and Reid. I mean, you can't tell me, Pat, you cannot tell me, no one can tell me that the Cromnibus, the big package, wouldn't be better under Speaker Boehner and Mitch McConnell than it was under Boehner and Harry Reid.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're going to be the same, well, then what's the point of having the Republican majority in the Senate? Everybody knows we're going to have much better policy coming out of the House and Senate with Boehner and McConnell in charge than we are with Boehner and Reid. And so that's why I felt the CR was the right move. I got it. I switched my vote to get it, and then things changed.
Had it gone down the way whoever this is or whoever they are from leadership that talked to you that day on the floor in the back of the room, had it gone down that way, you vote for the rule stands. 3 hours later, you're voting on the CR.
Yeah.
It would have been everything you guys would have hoped for.
Yeah.
The people would be applauding you. The Wall Street Journal would be lifting up your name on high. And seriously. It would have been more than you could have hoped for.
That is what we wanted all along. I mean, there was a group of us that met in the Rayburn room the day before and said, okay, look, it sounds like they don't have the votes on the Cromnibus. And so what is it that what would we want? I mean, when they don't have the votes, then they have to, that you hope they come to you and say, what does it take to get your vote? Well, if it's a short-term budget extension in a CR, we're like, that's what we want. And that's what we were willing to take.
Okay, so originally you're no. Leadership, somebody or somebody's comes to you and says, hey, we've got to get this thing passed. In fact, somebody from leadership, in fact, you're not naming names, but somebody here, Pete Sessions, went up to the other gentleman that changed his vote, Benevolio from Michigan.
Yeah.
Because Benevolio sometimes dresses up as Santa Claus during the Christmas holidays.
Yeah.
And after he switched his vote, Sessions, according to Benevolio, comes up to him and says, "You're a good man, Santa." To which Benevolio says back to him, "Merry Christmas." So, I mean, it's like, okay, it's and I'm not going to ask you if that's the same person that talked to you, but somebody did.
Now, Sessions is the rules chairman, so he would have been the one who passed the rule out of his committee and brought it to the floor.
Okay, now, so we've passed the rule. You and Benevolio change it. The rule passes. We go into recess.
Yeah.
They instantly recess the House.
Yeah.
That's not a warning sign. That's not a flare. That's per usual.
Yeah.
Like you said, normally you got to have rooms for debates and all that. You guys are all going back to your offices. Your compadres are saying, Marlin, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Because now we're going to get the CR. Here we go. But then they don't call you back to session. They don't call you back to session. They don't call you back to session. This is dragging on and on and on. And then come to find out, somebody tips off the White House what's happened with the vote on the rule. And this never happens. You talked about how you never vote against a rule. Okay. Something else that never happens is under President Obama, the Obama administration never gets involved in this type of thing, jumping in with members in the House.
That's a good point. Very rarely, because the president, the White House doesn't. He doesn't come down to the Capitol. Usually, he sends Vice President Biden down. And, going back to the shutdown a year ago, Pat,
right?
They drug Republicans into a shutdown knowing we'd be blamed for it. And in this case, he could have done it again. He could have, because Republicans weren't voting for the Cromnibus or the budget bill, either one. And he could have drug us into it again, but he didn't. He then jumps on board, says, I would sign the Cromnibus. And, so I went to lunch with State Representative Ben Smaltz from Auburn, who was out in D.C., and we're sitting there having lunch. All of a sudden, I get an email saying that the Cromnibus is going to be put back on the floor for debate, just for debate, not for a vote, but for debate. And so I'm right away asking questions and texting and calling and saying, what is going on? I was just told a CR was going to take its place. And so that's when I'm really getting ticked and asking questions on what is going on. And then I find out that the president has just endorsed the bill. And then
which was throwing a lot of weight behind it.
Well, he's going to go get Democrats to vote for it.
Yeah,
Nancy Pelosi was opposed to it for a lot of other reasons.
Right. And Senator Warren's against it. But when the White House not only says, we think it's a good idea, but when the president throws his weight, I understand he started having cabinet officials starting to call members of the House.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. And his chief of staff came down to the Capitol, and they had a long meeting, and they've got enough votes to go along with the Cromnibus and vote for it, and that's how they had to get it passed, because there were 67 Republicans that voted against it.
Right.
So they did not have enough Republicans to vote for it. They had to go get Democrat votes to vote for it.
Yeah. Going back to Gerke, in one of his articles, he says, I'm hearing from two sources that House leadership promised to pull the Cromnibus and replace it with a short-term continuing resolution that would push the entire funding into next year. Did you, in one way or another, when they come back to you on the floor and they say, we really need you to vote for the rule and all that, did you, whoever it is, did you look them eye to eye and say, so we're getting a continuing resolution? I mean, did you ask them that question?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
That pointedly?
Asked them twice.
Okay. In the earshot of anybody else or just you?
We were in the back in the rail.
Okay.
And then I walked forward and told a bunch of other members the same thing, and so we're talking there, and I said, this is what the deal is, and to me this was new information.
Yeah, because
I'm not the whip, I'm not in leadership. To me, this is new information that says, hey, guess what? Democrats aren't voting for this. Not enough Republicans are voting for this. I mean, this happens on other bills as well.
Yeah, the way this transpired is really nothing new.
No, I mean, it happened on the Farm Bill. The Farm Bill, the same thing was happening. They needed Democrat votes to get the bill to pass because they didn't have enough Republicans to vote for it. And they all expected about 40 Democrats to vote for the Farm Bill, and they didn't. And that's when the Farm Bill failed. I mean, I don't know if you remember back when that all fell to pieces.
Yep.
And then that's when, there was just silence on the floor.
And that opened up everything.
And that's how we actually separated it in the House. And that went on from there. So this has happened before.
Okay.
But the rule was actually in jeopardy in this case, and that's when I understood very clearly that it was dying and that a CR was going to take its place. Told others, and then walked forward and switched my vote.
Okay. Got to take a quick break, then we'll come back. Troubling thing is the White House gets involved, starts really hammering people. This is after the rule passed.
Yep.
Unbeknownst to you, the Speaker of the House has at least 2 meetings with the membership from Pennsylvania, and they get pressured into switching their votes for the bill. So, I mean, obviously, had you known that at the time, that would have been a little troubling.
Well, I didn't ever expect us to be in that point. I mean, I thought we were going to a CR. So then I find out that, members are being called to offices. I was called to the whip's office to get my see if I would switch my vote, and I said no.
Whip Mr. Scalise?
Yeah.
He calls you in to see where you stand on the bill?
Yes, yeah. Called me in around 7 o'clock, about 6 o'clock or so that evening, and we had a nice conversation. It was a very good conversation. And we talked about next year and the what we need to do next year. And he just asked me if I would where I was at on it, and I said I'm a no. And
on the bill.
On the bill, yeah. I mean and I hope people understand that very clearly. I voted no on the bill. On the final passage, I voted no. That rule is where the all this conflict is going on because of how it all went down on the floor, and I was a no, and then went to a yes on the rule. But I voted no on the bill that eventually passed and went over to the Senate.
Let me get the quick break in. We'll be back. Marlin Stutzman, he's here in the Newsmaker chair, and we're going. There's a question I'm going to ask you when we come back. You're not going to like it. Okay. Let me get down to it here, Marlin. Okay. Obviously, you know who told you. I would because if you don't know, then we have to have you checked out because there's something wrong. You know who told you,
right?
Okay. I think I know who told you. Okay, but again, I'm not going to say because I wasn't on the floor. I know what I've seen, I know what I've heard, but I wasn't on the floor. Are you ready right now to tell me the who? And if not, why not?
No, I'm not, Pat, because we've had a lot of conversations since this happened.
Right.
And, we all left town and left D.C. on Friday. We've had phone calls trying to connect. And I want to
trying to connect with the parties,
the persons,
okay.
The persons involved in this, and I want to give everybody the chance to fix this and do it right and do the right thing. I don't want people pointing fingers at each other and said, he lied.
So Pat Miller came to you in the back of the floor, and I said to you, I need you to change your votes, and here's why. And then it didn't play out that way.
Right.
And then now I'm out of town. I'm not in D.C.
Yeah.
We're not together. So you're talking directly to me, or you're talking to my staff, or your staff's talking to my staff, or who's talking to who?
Both.
Here?
Both.
All the above.
Yeah, a lot of conversations.
But you're waiting for Pat Miller to come and to do the right thing and say, okay, here's what happened. Because, can I ask you another direct question?
Sure.
Are you, as you're sitting here right now, the person in leadership, are you convinced that they knew they were being dishonest with you, or do you think that maybe they were putting forth what they thought also was going to happen?
I don't know. That could be. I mean, that's why I can't judge that. I mean, I was told by this person, the information that was given to me was what I took.
Had you ever known them to be dishonest with you before, this person?
No.
Okay.
No, and that's we have levels of trust, and also like you said, I mean things change, so just all I'm asking is say, look, let's discuss this. Let me know what happened, and if you misled me on purpose, we've got a problem.
Yeah.
If something else happened, let me know.
Well, and if somebody misled them, then they have another level problem too that needs to be dealt with.
That's right.
Now, okay, we're out of time. One last question, okay? If nothing gets resolved, you're giving them whatever a fair amount of time is. Let's all get back to D.C. When all the dust settles. I'm giving you X number of hours or days or whatever to get things right. If things don't get right, do you think it makes sense with the new House of Representatives and the new majority? Do you think it makes sense to continue with leadership top to bottom as it is to continue leading the House?
We will have a lot of conversations about this, Pat, and I tell you, a lot of members are watching to see what's going on here because other members...
Are they telling you that?
Yes, they're calling me, and there's members that witnessed conversations on the floor that testify to what I said.
So what
I heard.
I'm so and so from such and such a state. I was standing right next to you when this person said to you.
That's
so
right.
I know what was said.
That's right.
So now they're waiting.
That's right. And these are members, not staff. Members.
Okay.
And so we're working through this, and you know what? I mean, I tell you, a lot of people are watching. This is important, and they need to get it right.
Will people from your district be able to know where you stand on things based on future votes of leadership from you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Yes. I mean, I will only, my commitment is, to always listen to the people in the 3rd District, to go to Washington and to, sort the mess out that it is. I mean, we have big problems in process in Washington. That's part of the reason why this Cromnibus is why I voted against it, because of the process. I mean, we were supposed to have 72 hours to read the bill. We had 36. We would have had to read 200 words per minute to read the bill.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to watch. We're going to watch.
I know.
Okay. And you and I may have a few other uncomfortable conversations in the future. I hope this gets resolved. I really do. Marlin, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I know I need to let you get back to D.C. He's taking off here in a little bit.